Welcome everybody to the first ever on the set Facebook Live event for our Tech Makeover show. Now we're here on the set of Tech Makeover Season 2, and I am Joe Woodard, executive producer, and I'm joined with Patricia Hendrix. She heads up all of the consulting for the engagements that we have, and also Richard, who is our director. So welcome, guys.
Thank you very much, Joe.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Patricia, I want to start with you. We're going to talk a little bit about what's happening here on the set, and we want you right here on our Facebook page to ask questions. Now, if you ask good questions, we're going to have a much better Facebook Live event. So I'm going to start with Patricia here. Patricia, last year, we performed a Tech Makeover of a bar in New Orleans, Louisiana. You know, a little different here. Tell us about this client.
The process was a lot different this year because last year the bar was located in one location. So all of the deployment of the technology was centered around the bar itself, inside the bar. This year with Marine Specialties, we have been all over the place. We've been out to the docks that they've been building. There was a large community dock that they were building, and we went and visited that site as well as some of their riprap and erosion control sites. I've worked with this client for over 10 years and have never been on site to one of their clients. So this was a real learning experience for me, and I thoroughly enjoyed getting to know their business even more intimately than I already did.
All right, so what is their business? What do they do?
Well, there's three divisions. They have the boat docks, so they build new boat docks and repair boat docks, and some of those are large community, 30-slip boat docks and larger. They also have riprap and erosion control, shoreline maintenance. So after you put your dock in, you want to make sure that the shoreline doesn't erode away with the movement of the water. And then the third division is the hydro hoist lift, which are the lifts that you see the boats, that raise the boats up out of the water and the jet skis out of the water.
And they pull all those in as well.
Exactly.
Now, for those of you who are not familiar with the geography of northern Georgia, just go pull out a map, pull up Google Maps. This is a massive lake called Lake Lanier up here in northwest Georgia, and they service the docks all across this lake area. Now, last year, Richard, we filmed in a single location inside of a restaurant. You've been all over this lake. All right,
yes,
tell me some of the filming challenges we've dealt with.
So yeah, like you said, first season we're in New Orleans. We're in a busy bar, people on the street performers, and we're in one location, like Patricia was talking with her implementation. And this year, we are at a company that's a little bigger, so there's more employees, we have more characters, more storylines to follow, and a lot more locations. We've got, yesterday we sent a guy out on a boat, following their crews out there. We've been on a couple different job sites, so we have a lot more scenes and different places to shoot. So logistically, it's been a little more on the scheduling side, but from a creative perspective, it's a bit more dynamic than the first season, as we are following a lot more characters and locations.
So harder to produce, but definitely more vividly stunning.
Yes,
I mean, in some cases, the lake views you guys are going to see when you watch Season 2 are spectacular behind the folks that we're talking with. Now, last year, we told a technology story, and I'm just going to address you guys, the audience, for a minute, and we did a really good job telling that technology story, but we didn't do a very good job telling a people story. The folks that headed up that bar at Spirits on Bourbon were not, they were full of personality, and they had very big technology needs. We got to know them well, and we got to see how that technology impacted them and their business, but you guys didn't. So we learned something from that, and we learned that the people involved in the Tech Makeover are just as important or more important than the technology that we're putting in. As consultants, if you're watching here today as an accounting professional or small business advisor, the technology is a means to an end, and that end is making our clients' lives better. Patricia, you've known these folks for years. Tom and Michelle, mom and pop, right, running this business. Tell us a little bit about them, and tell us a little bit about how this technology is going to help them.
Well, Michelle's been working with Tom since very early days of the business, and they got married shortly after she started working here. They have twin daughters the same age as my daughter. So I can really relate to the challenges of, sporting events and different needs for the children, and then all of their other life challenges. This week has been especially challenging because right in the middle of us filming Tech Makeover, they were moving from one house to another.
Right.
Their daughter broke her hand. There were soccer games to attend and volleyball games to attend, and these poor people were just running around. And then we had a large storm come through also, which everything that could have gone wrong was going wrong. But this is normal life for them. I mean, things come at them a million miles an hour all of the time.
So how's the technology going to help them deal with those things coming at them? I mean, how do you expect Michelle and Tom's life and their daughter's life to be better?
Well, I've worked with Michelle for a long time, very, very closely, and I've seen how she operates. She is constantly... her mind is in the business all the time, even though she's pulled in a million different directions. And I know when she has to leave the office, she's leaving loose ends behind that she needs to manage. So a lot of what we've talked about are communication and collaboration tools that we can help her stay in touch with her new staff in the back office, with her department managers, and make sure that she's managing everything and taking care of the problems and the fires as they occur, no matter if she's sitting at a soccer game or whether she's sitting here in her office.
And that's really a testament to the power of the cloud. I mean, and that's the crazy thing is, and I want to talk with you more about that, is we're taking a business this size with this level of complexity to the cloud, which I think is understandable. The cloud's very powerful, but to QuickBooks Online, which I think a lot of folks tuning into this this broadcast and maybe watching Tech Makeover might assume a business of this size can't handle. But before we talk about that, I want to talk about that storm, Richard. How did the storm affect you guys? I mean, you're trying to film, right? The boats were blown over here, like docks were messed up. What happened with you guys?
Well, honestly, that was very exciting for us. It gave us something to run out and start shooting. And so we came in with a basic understanding of Patricia's history with the client and understanding of the characters, but we also came ready to kind of seize any opportunity that arose. So when that storm happened, we were able to come in. We started, like I said, get some B-roll shots of some of the damaged fence, but then also start integrating that into our story. We know we wanted conflict and we wanted drama, and we said this is a perfect thing to capitalize on.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. So, Patricia, back to the cloud story a little bit. How did you take a client with this level of complexity? And I've seen that shop and I've seen that warehouse, right? Very complex inventory needs. They're on QuickBooks Online, all right? So without giving away all the technology, I'm going to stop you short of just inventory. You'll have to tune in, folks, to Season 2 if you're going to get all of the slate of tricks that Patricia had in her bag. But tell us about what you did with inventory.
Well, I'd like to start out my answer, Joe, in that I was myself very nervous about this implementation. I'm kind of one of the old school thinking consultants where I'm very, very comfortable with QuickBooks Desktop. Most of my clients...
client was too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Most of my clients are running QuickBooks Enterprise, and that's our comfort zone. We have definitely started to transition into more clients that are on QuickBooks Online, but as we bump into the restrictions there, we ruled out, just as a general rule, ruled out anybody with inventory, right? So it was really interesting to start thinking in terms of this. I had to do something here. Their file was way too big. They'd already had one server crash, so we were facing impending doom. So I either had to start thinking about going into a new empty QuickBooks file and starting from scratch, or making some other transition. So the timing was perfect to start considering cloud technology. And there's some really good products that tie directly into QuickBooks Online that build it so that you can just use it as the central GL hub and then build onto it with other feature-rich products, like this inventory program.
Right.
So,
Which we can go ahead and out this one because this is the one gimme we're going to give.
One gimme.
SOS Inventory. Why did you pick those guys?
Okay, so I picked SOS Inventory because they seamlessly integrate with QuickBooks Online. They had a feature in there that I could not get with any other software, including Enterprise Solutions, and that was a disassembly process. So what happens here...
So for those of us who aren't familiar with disassembly or inventory management, what does that mean?
Okay, so when you assemble an item, you gather together all the components. It's 3 of these, 5 of these, 7 of these, and you put them together into a kit or an assembly, okay? So what we needed to do here, because we get a big discount here if we buy it as a kit, but then when it's delivered on the truck, it's actually delivered as the component parts. So I'm not going to get 5 different boat lifts on the truck. I'm going to get all the tanks that go with the boat lift and all the parts that go with the boat lift and the screws and the nuts and bolts and washers.
Got it.
So I needed a tool that could easily and seamlessly do that. Now, the way that we were solving that problem in QuickBooks Enterprise was with memorized bill transactions.
Yes, it's functional, but
Exactly.
definitely
It was a
not ideal,
workaround,
right?
but
Yeah.
it was circumventing the average costing
Yep.
method. So by using SOS Inventory, they helped me develop a template that I could disassemble a kit and actually use real average costing, real-time average costing to that moment that we were doing the disassembly.
Yep. This is a hustling, bustling place, and Richard, it's full of activity. So, you've got trucks moving, you've got people in and out. I mean, even as we've been doing this, you might have been hearing folks tuned in, phones ringing, people talking in the hallways. How have you managed all of that, trying to film and making it feel more like, we're on a movie set?
Right. Well, there's definitely a balance there of getting in, getting our setups, and getting what we need, but also trying to stay out of the way the best we can. So a lot of that scheduling, talking to people when they've got calls, when they're required for meetings, and so making sure that we get what we need, but also give them their space and give that oxygen to the business so they can continue running. So
And you just have to let a little bit of that background noise seep in.
Oh, definitely.
Beeping trucks
Yeah.
and phones ringing. But that actually captures the way it feels around here. I mean, this is absolutely a bustling place. So let's get to some questions that you guys have been providing us through Facebook. Let's go with the first question, Aaron.
Can your average bookkeeper or accountant learn to implement a complex technology makeover like this? And that's from Kathy in Atlanta.
All right, so can your average, she used the word average, QuickBooks Pro Advisor, learn how to do this kind of an implementation? Patricia, at one point you didn't feel like you could handle it, so I'm going to let you answer that. How did you get from there to here?
Thank you. That's a really good question, and I wanted to answer this one. So probably about 3 years ago at Scaling New Heights, I came to the realization that I can't possibly learn everything. There are so many products, there is so much information out there that I can't know it all. So at that time, with your help, I started building a resource pool around myself. People that knew things that I didn't know. I have an inventory specialist. I have a construction specialist. I have, all the different people that I need surrounding me so that when I come into a job like this, I know who I can reach out to. I have trusted resources that are going to help me do the
And in some ways you become
implementation.
like an orchestra conductor, only you're playing a couple instruments too, right?
It's
Exactly,
true.
yeah.
It's true. A lot of times, though, you really become that quarterback. Where you're really making sure all the pieces fit together, and then especially when you have multiple vendors involved, you have to make sure that they're all talking to one another and nobody's finger pointing to each other,
Right.
saying, "Oh, it's their problem. Oh, it's their problem."
Yeah.
It's actually no. You're doing this for me,
Right.
so you better make me happy, and everybody better
Sometimes
start
you're
talking
quarterback
to each
and
other.
sometimes you're a referee, right?
Exactly, exactly.
But a couple of the resources that you pulled in on this engagement were folks like an IT consultant, right?
That is correct.
Yep. And you pulled in Ian Alina on some of the job costing and some of the payables matters related to job costing because he is one of the nation's leading job costing experts. So, that's just a couple of the folks that you're going to be exposed to here on season 2. There were a chorus of consultants that Patricia worked with. All right. Yes.
One more question. How did you decide which piece or pieces of technology to implement? So, for example, there's lots of different payable solutions. How did you choose and pick the one that worked best for the client?
Yeah, so I'll let Patricia take that one too. And let's start, we can't necessarily name all of the solutions because that would be a spoiler.
Right.
But since we've named SOS, and we've talked a little bit about SOS, why don't we just talk about it now in a general sense? So when you're selecting a payable solution for a client, what might be some of the considerations?
Well, one of the things that we looked at was what their approval process required. So some of the different payable solutions that are available have different levels of approval that you can have. And if it's a very simplistic approval process, I might choose one product, but if they have maybe multiple levels where 2 or 3 people have to make that approval, then I'm going to choose a different product. The other component of that is whether I need that payables product to actually do the paying, or whether it's simply going to push those bills into QuickBooks Online, and then I choose my paying from that point of view.
So, and then I would imagine that the industry, because we were asked that sort of in a generic sense, so the industry of any given client as well as their operations should be a consideration. So, you know, you might pick a different payables solution for a construction company than you would for an inventory company.
Absolutely.
And unfortunately, we don't have time to completely drill down on product vetting and process, but can you say, or I would say in a high level sense, Patricia, you started with this client by just getting to know all the intricacies of their operations, right? It's more of a client discovery than it is a software discovery. Would you agree?
Absolutely, but I knew this client relatively well already.
Right.
I've been working with them for over a decade, so I really understood what their needs were. But in this process and having the frame of mind that I was considering other products, you know, and a tech stack built around the cloud, I needed to make sure I understood everything that was going on. So I actually did dive a little deeper into their day-to-day routines than I normally do.
So, Richard, there are some of our folks listening may be very interested in how we produce something like this. So, when they see it, it is just going to all flow in order, right?
Right.
How do you actually film it?
Well, first it starts with a lot of phone calls with you guys talking about
Right.
getting prepared, planning the logistics for it. And so when we get on site, we have a good idea of the skeleton of what we need. And like I was talking about before, we know the basic story elements, but we also are open to capturing everything that's happening, because you can't plan this type of thing. Or you can come in with the history and understand kind of the dynamic of the different people involved. And so we come in and we have basic scenes like this person talks to this person. You know, Tom talks to Michelle and Patricia introduces her ideas. And so that's the basic idea for that scene and what we need. And as we're here working through the conversation, I start to unearth a lot of conversations they've had in the past and ways that we can circle it all into a single scene, because we can't be here for 10 years, you know, like Patricia has been.
Well,
so
nothing's scripted here either.
Right.
So I've seen one of the things you do really, really well is somebody will start talking and you'll sense something behind the story, some emotion, and you'll ask them a question. Now, our audience will never get to hear that question you ask, right? You're off mic, right? And it doesn't make editing, but you're asking them a question to help them to get to what they're trying to say better. And
exactly. And sometimes I don't even have to do that. There have been some times we're setting up in room A, you know, and we see a conversation developing in room B, so we just kind of sneak over and start shooting, and we get that without having to. Exactly. I don't have to ask any questions, and it makes my job easier. So.
This is the most real reality TV I've ever seen.
Yeah, that is the
very
truth,
real.
guys, because we get asked that all the time. Are you guys faking this, or are you really putting in the technology? And I could tell you, we are really putting in these technologies, and Patricia and her team have been working very, very hard. Now, one of the big differences between this Tech Makeover and the last one, we got asked all the time, did you really do that in a week last year? And yes, we did. Now, we pulled in a small army of resources to put in a point-of-sale system, wireless routers, and all the other solutions that you saw in QBO. We had it teed up, but an army was swarming over that place getting it put in. Trying to do what we're doing here, which this is probably, 4 times the size of that engagement.
Easily.
Right, and geographically spread out. Plus, we haven't even talked about the fact that these folks have a warehouse in South Carolina, and we're not filming there, but we had to deal with that. This is weeks long, and even though the primary shooting is happening this week, and the primary production is happening this week, we've been at this process for a while. So.
Yes, we definitely have. It's actually been probably a couple of months that we've been working on the implementation. And then in addition to that, after filming is over, we're going to continue working on the implementation for the next couple of
just
weeks.
To shore up some, finish
months.
out some of the things, train.
Right, and we actually have an end of April go live date for QuickBooks Online.
Got it. So you've already done some of the conversion steps now, and you're just,
Exactly.
Exactly.
That brings up a great question from Caleb. Who's asking, what did you do to bring the targets under 250,000? So, of course, that's from the beginning.
Very technical question.
Very technical question.
Patricia can answer that. Go ahead.
Okay, so their QuickBooks Enterprise file is enormous, and the targets are very, very high. There's no way that I could convert this QuickBooks Enterprise file to QuickBooks Online. So we will actually be starting with a go live date of April 30th, May 1st, and we'll be starting a new trial balance. So we take a snapshot of QuickBooks Enterprise where we're at on April 30th, bring that in. The trick here is that we've got other systems that are already feeding into QuickBooks Online. So it's not a quick, easy transition from one to the other. We've sort of got 1 or 2 feet already in the water, and now we have to get the rest of us in the water with it. So it's going to be a very tricky transaction.
And that brings up an interesting point, Patricia, because you're talking about go live is May 1st, but setup of QuickBooks Online, training QuickBooks Online, and integration of the technologies has already happened.
That has. Mm-hmm.
So when you're dealing with a more complex engagement like this, you don't necessarily have implementation, setup, go live, and training all happen in a couple of days like some of the smaller companies.
That would be overwhelming.
That would be overwhelming. It's definitely a phased approach. So, well, folks, I appreciate so much you tuning in to our Behind. Oh, actually, we have another question.
Absolutely, and this is really important to the viewing audience. How will we find out when the series starts to air? I don't want to miss it.
Okay, fantastic.
Awesome.
Well, that's actually what I was about to end with, so that is perfect. We are going to launch Season 2 of Tech Makeover beginning June the 4th, 2017. Now, that is the first day of Scaling New Heights 2017. So Patricia is going to come out onto our main stage. We're going to try to get Richard up there too if we can. He likes being behind the camera. And then we're going to bring in Tom and Michelle, the owners of the company. Going to send them down to Orlando. We're going to go up to that stage together and talk about where they are now with the process of their technology. And you're going to get to hear directly from them this time about the impact that technology has had on their lives and on their business. And then we're going to launch the first episode. We'll air the episodes about weekly from that point until we wrap up sometime mid-July. Now, if you haven't watched Season 1, I have great news for you. Season 1 is available for on-demand streaming now. And you can get to Season 1 and eventually Season 2 at woodard.com. That's just my last name, WOODARD.com. And that's a great way to wrap things up today. We encourage you to watch Season 2. Thank you, Patricia. Thank you, Richard. You're doing a great job with this.
Richard.
We encourage you to come to Scaling New Heights.